Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris here, and we've got a new Batman movie on the horizon titled The Batman. They've run out of variations on how to title these things at this point, it seems like, but I thought I'd bring you a ranking video. I haven't done one of these in a long time, and I wanted to rank the live-action Batman movies and just kind of give my thoughts on that and see what you all think about this. Now, I will say there are a couple of movies that are going to be excluded from this. The first of which, and maybe the most controversial that's going to be excluded here, is the Batman movie that was released, I believe, in 1965. It had Adam West in it. I just have not seen that movie. That's probably blasphemous and heretical and all those terms that you want to throw out there because I haven't seen it. So I'm not including it on this list, but it's my list and I can do what I want, right? So the other movie that I'm throwing out of here is Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League because they're not primarily about Batman. However, I am including Batman versus Superman because there's enough there as far as a centralized story on Batman to count, I think, in my opinion. So that is going to be part of this list. But as I go through these rankings, just let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with this. This is really, just my personal preference on the ones that I've enjoyed the most. It's not necessarily a commentary on how great the craft is in each movie, even though obviously the better the craft, the better the movie in a lot of cases. But these are the ones that I've just had the most fun with and I thought were the most well-made overall. So let's go through the list. And again, let me know what you think in the comments as we go through this. Hey, as always, if you're enjoying the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and please be sure to click that subscribe button. Alright, so we're going to go from worst to best here, and number 8 on this list is Batman and Robin. You remember the one I'm talking about? It's got Arnold Schwarzenegger, Uma Thurman, George Clooney, Chris O'Donnell. I can remember vividly when this was released. I believe it was a Joel Schumacher movie, a follow-up to Batman Forever, which we'll get to in just a moment. But it's pretty horrendous. It's just a really sort of cotton candy-ish type of Batman movie that is so overblown, so over the top, doesn't really work well in terms of a color palette, in my opinion. So, visually when you're looking at this movie, a lot of people may sort of absorb all these kind of neon colors and that sort of thing and think, oh, that's, reminiscent of an actual comic book. To me, it just doesn't go along with what I would associate with someone like The Dark Knight, like Batman. So, I never really did like this movie. I always thought it was just kind of a joke of a movie. Maybe some people feel differently about it. It just never really worked all that great to me. But again, let me know what you think about this one in the comments. Number 7 on the list is Batman Forever. So this one, to me, even though it is number 7, it's toward the bottom of this list, it's leaps and bounds better than Batman and Robin, and mostly because of Jim Carrey. I think he does an amazing job as the Riddler in this. I think he was perfectly cast. Even though, again, this is a very kind of overblown, over-the-top movie. I mean, it begins with a circus sequence, as I recall, and trying to get rid of a bomb. I mean, it's a very kind of classic comic book sort of setup. I think that Jim Carrey works so well here, and I think that Val Kilmer actually is a pretty good Batman in this movie. So there's enough here to me to distinguish this from Batman and Robin and to make it much, much better than that as an offering. But it does still end up as number 7 on my list. Okay, this is where the list gets a little bit tricky for me, and it kind of comes down to rewatchability a little bit. Number 6 on this list for me is Batman Returns, and actually, I really do enjoy this movie. I just think that, again, from a rewatchability perspective, it gets a little bit tiresome. I do think the penguin animals, the actual birds that are included in the movie, that part of it becomes a little bit much. Not to say that any of these movies are meant to be hyper realistic or anything like that, but I just think, especially when you compare it to its predecessor, which again we'll talk about in just a little bit, it's still a good movie. It's still got that signature Tim Burton style to it. To me, it just doesn't work as well. However, there is a lot of great stuff here, right? Christopher Walken, I think, is amazing in it. There's a lot of that dark comedy that you would expect from a Tim Burton offering, Batman or not. Michael Keaton as Batman is great. I think he's one of the best bat people, whatever term you want to use there, that we've ever had. And of course, he really kicked off sort of the modern Batman series, and that's one of the reasons that I'm not including, or one of the other reasons that I'm not including the 1965 Batman here. But anyway, number 6 on my list, Batman Returns. Let me know what you think about that one. Number 5 is actually Batman versus Superman. A lot of people dislike this movie passionately. I actually think it's highly entertaining and really fun to watch. I think on paper you see that and you think, well, there's no way that Batman could fight Superman and actually win. But again, using his intellect and using the tools at his disposal and his wealth, of course, he's able to make this a matchup, and I think that it's handled really well. And it's a really cool production type of movie, right? I mean, again, it looks great. I like the way Zack Snyder directs stuff. Typically, I think Zack Snyder's Justice League is a really, really great offering. I'm not including that on this list. I just mentioned that. But I like Batman versus Superman. I thought it was a really cool movie, especially when you compare it to the Justice League that came from, who was it that took over that movie? I'm trying to remember now. Joss Whedon. Yeah, that was a total disaster. But anyway, number 5, Batman versus Superman. And I think it probably falls on about the same place on this list for a lot of people. Either you really see a lot of great things there, or not a lot of great things, but there's enough to appreciate it, and falling sort of in the middle of a list like this. But anyway, let me know what you think about Batman versus Superman. Number 4 on my list is The Dark Knight Rises. Again, I really loved this movie when it came out. As time has gone on, it's kind of settled a little bit lower on my rankings than where it was initially. I still think Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy is the best comic book trilogy ever made, personally, even more so than any of the Avengers stuff, any of the MCU stuff, whatever. I just think it's the best comic book trilogy that's ever been put on film. The Dark Knight Rises is a great movie. Bane is a great villain. I think the story of his character and how that connects back to the League of Shadows and all that, I just thought it was handled really well. I think, too, there's a lot of broader kind of social commentary woven into this about, upper class versus middle class versus people that are just poverty-stricken and can't get out of that cycle. And so I think there's a lot of really cool stuff happening here. I do think the ending of it is a little bit confusing initially. I guess it makes sense the more times you watch it, but I still think the way the ending is edited, where you've got sort of initially kind of an ambiguous did he survive or not survive thing in relation to Batman, was a little bit confusing at first. But overall, The Dark Knight Rises, I think, is a great movie and deserves to be at number 4 on this list. Number 3 on this list for me is the 1989 Batman, the one that really started the modern superhero movie, I guess, if you want to use that. Well, I guess that would be Superman, right? Christopher Reeve Superman. But really, the modern Batman movies. Michael Keaton is amazing in this. Jack Nicholson is amazing in this. Tim Burton turns out, really kind of an atypical comic book movie. And it works really well. It's memorable. I remember seeing this as a kid and just absolutely loving it, And again, looking back on it now, it's really super dark. Like, I would let my children watch this, absolutely. But it's not the kind of thing that I think a lot of parents these days would be okay with, in the way that it's, kind of a violently grim movie. But it's hilarious, too. I mean, to me, this is the funniest the Joker has ever been. As much as I love Heath Ledger as Joker, I think that from a hilarity point of view, Jack Nicholson does that better, personally. There's a lot of debate about who the better Joker is, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute. But to me, the 1989 Batman is one of the best of all time, and it's number 3 on my list. Okay, a little bit of controversy here. People are probably going to really disagree with me on this. Number 2 on my list is The Dark Knight, which then makes number 1 kind of obvious. But I think The Dark Knight is an amazing movie. I think Heath Ledger is amazing as the Joker from a very, again, societal commentary point of view, from a madman point of view, from an acting point of view. I don't think he's as funny as Jack Nicholson, as I just mentioned, and so it just depends on what you want out of the Joker, right? You don't want Jared Leto, not Jared Leto, that's his evil twin, Jared Leto's Joker. I don't think. Most people don't anyway. You want Joaquin Phoenix Joker, and that's not included here because it's not a Batman movie specifically, but oh my gosh, is Joker with Joaquin Phoenix an amazing movie. I love that movie. But anyway, The Dark Knight does a lot of things right. I do think at times, and this is just my personal opinion, I think the plot gets a little bit convoluted. I think the stuff with Harvey Dent as it goes along, even though it is, of course, central to the whole trilogy, becomes a little bit much toward the end, especially in the way that he's presented visually. I think they could have made his half-destroyed face be just a little more subtle and not quite so non-realistic or unrealistic. I don't know. There's some things in The Dark Knight that I think don't work as well as some people think, but it is an amazing movie. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think it's the second best Batman movie ever made. Obviously, it's on this list. But number 1 on my list, and what I consider to be the best Batman movie ever made, is Batman Begins. People are going to disagree with that, I'm sure. I'm a sucker for an origin story, especially one that's really well done, and that's what we get here. I think the way that, Batman comes to fruition, how he evolves, in this story is just magnificent. I think it's one of the best movies ever made, personally. And I think it kicked off this trilogy in a way that has been unmatched by a lot of others, right? So Batman Begins to me is the best Batman movie ever made so far. I am, really optimistic about The Batman. I do think it looks a little too angsty, maybe. I think obviously you want to trend that direction for a character such as The Dark Knight, but the trailers have got me a little bit, I wouldn't say worried about it. I still think it's going to be a great movie. It's got a great cast. I'm sure it was, lovingly put together and assembled and all that. But I'll be curious to see how they handle the whole angst kind of thing that they've got, the brooding sort of perspective they've got, this present in all the trailers. But anyway, those are my Batman rankings. A lot of people are probably going to disagree. There are probably some movies that I should have included here that I didn't. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching.